الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الصلاة خير من النوم الصلاة خير من النوم الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
استووا واستقيموا واعتدلوا تراصوا ولا تختلفوا حاذوا بين المناكب والأقدام سدوا الخلل تموا الصف الأول. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. واتل عليهم نبأ بني آدم بالحق إذ قربا قربانا فتقبل من أحدهما ولم يتقبل من الآخر قال لأقتلنك قال إنما يتقبل الله من المتقين لئن بسطت إلي يدك لتقتلني ما أنا بباسط يدي إليك لأقتلك إني أخاف الله رب العالمين إني أريد أن تبوء بإثمي وإثمك فتكون من أصحاب النار وذلك جزاء الظالمين فطوعت له نفسه قتل أخيه فقتله فأصبح من الخاسرين فبعث الله غرابا يبحث في الأرض ليريه كيف يواري سوءة أخيه قال يا ويلتى أعجزت أن أكون مثل هذا الغراب فأواري سوءة أخي فأصبح من النادمين الله سمع الله لمن حمده الله الله أكبر الله الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا ولقد جاءتهم رسلنا بالبينات ثم إن كثيرا منهم بعد ذلك في الأرض لمسرفون إنما جزاء الذين يحاربون الله ورسوله ويسعون في الأرض فسادا أن يقتلوا أو يصلبوا أو تقطع أيديهم وأرجلهم من خلاف أو ينفوا من الأرض ذلك لهم خزي في الدنيا ولهم في الآخرة عذاب عظيم إلا الذين تابوا من قبل أن تقدروا عليهم فاعلموا أن الله غفور رحيم الله سمع الله لمن حمده الله الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. As I do on weekend mornings, Saturday and Sunday, I'll continue inshallah with the tafsir of Surah Az-Zukhruf. And we had stopped last weekend at ayah number 35. And we'll continue inshallah from ayah number 36. It's page 492 if you're using a Madani print of the Quran. And Surah Az-Zukhruf, as a quick reminder, it's amongst a cluster of surahs called Al-Hawamim. They start with Surah Ghafir and they end with Surah Al-Ahqaf. And they give pieces of advice and warnings for those who choose to walk the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in spreading the message and practicing the deen. Surah Az-Zukhruf is the first of 3 surahs within this cluster, the last ones, that actually give warnings. And the first one that we're basically reciting, Surah Az-Zukhruf, the warning, is very much regarding a unidimensional approach or understanding of the world, which is very much materialistic in nature. And materialism is a problem on many fronts and in many ways. And Surah Az-Zukhruf takes a jab at all of these different ways, and it looks at it from different angles. And quite honestly, it's one of the most relatable surahs that you can read, especially in this day and age, because we definitely have this problem. We definitely are struggling today with a very materialistic approach to life and a very materialistic understanding of the world of the world that we live in. That's why the surah tackled a number of issues. It talked about how the Arab back in were worshipping idols and how that was based on a financial benefit, which was again a unidimensional reason for why they would do it. It's just the money, and the reason that they actually oppressed women was also for the exact same reason. It was purely financial. It had nothing to do with whether it was right or wrong. Talking about al-aba'iyya, just the fact that they just want to follow what their fathers did, regardless of whether it was correct or incorrect or whether it made sense or not. It's just was lucrative for them, so they continued to do it. He gave us the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam, who faced the same problem when he was before his bi'tha, even when he was living in al-Iraq. And then give us the example of what the people of Quraysh actually said when the Prophet ﷺ brought them the deen. لولا نزل هذا القرآن على رجل من القريتين عظيم. This revelation should have come to one of the greats of the 2 great villages. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Obviously, he is the greatest person to ever live. But they're judging greatness again unidimensionally. They're just looking at it. He's not wealthy. Doesn't have a lot of sons, and so he's not the right person to carry this. Alayhi salatu wasalam. And then the final thing that we read last weekend was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if it wasn't for the fact that everyone would just leave the deen and prefer to be on the side of kufr, we would have given every person who disbelieves in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the wealth they would like and all the zukhruf they can hope for. Which is the reason the surah is called Zukhruf. Zukhruf is everything that's shiny on the outside, has no essence, has no value, has no substance on the inside, which is a very specific usage of this word linguistically. Something that just looks really nice, but it really doesn't have any value. If it was taken outside of the fact that it's a little bit shiny, then it doesn't really have any value at all. And Zukhruf is we're just rigged. Naturally, we're programmed to like it. It's just how we are. But that doesn't mean that it should take precedence and it should take priority. And which doesn't mean that we should be judging the world that way. We cannot afford to allow ourselves or to allow our younger generations to see success based on fame and wealth, and for those to be the only 2 metrics that we have to actually judge someone being successful or not successful. This is a huge problem. It's a real problem. I cannot sound this alarm more aggressively. This is a problem that they're growing up with this expectation of themselves. It's not something that we're teaching them, but it's how the world is running right now. If you don't have followers, or if you're not someone who is known, if what you're doing is not becoming famous, you're not becoming famous for it, to the point where millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people are caring for it, or if you're not making a lot of money, then what you're doing is not of value. And this is a musibah, because that's definitely not how the world works. And this is an example of why I think Surah Az-Zukhruf is very important, because it points out these deficits in this thought process. The thought process of just seeing everything attached to wealth, or just a materialistic approach to everything in life in general. Today, inshallah, I will recite from 36 to 45. And tomorrow, is a treat, because you get to read the story of Musa alayhi salam with Fir'aun, but in a very specific context, meaning the way that it's told in Surah Az-Zukhruf is different than the way it's told anywhere else in the Quran. Reason being that the context of the surah, or the purpose of the surah, is very specific. And you'll find that, by the way, every story that is repeated in the Quran is never repeated identically, ever. There's no two stories in the Quran of the same prophet that are repeated the exact same way. There's always differences, and these differences are actually based on the fact that each surah has a different approach, has a different angle to what it's talking about. So it will emphasize a piece of the story that matters for the theme of the surah. It'll just take out that piece, or it will emphasize the piece that will definitely shed light on why the surah was revealed to begin with and what it's trying to teach. And that's for for all of the prophets, and it is for Musa. It's a bit more difficult sometimes to pick it up for Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam's story, because of how many times it's actually in the Quran. But that's definitely the case. And some of the differences are quite subtle and quite specific and quite detailed, and they're very impressive. Subhanallah, Jalla Jalalullah is very because it's impossible for a human being to, as they go through something like this, to actually write it that way. It's just beyond. And so that'll be something we'll talk about tomorrow. But today we'll recite inshallah from ayah number 36. I'll recite a little bit and then I'll explain the meanings. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن يعش عن ذكر الرحمن نقيض له شيطانا فهو له قرين وإنهم ليصدونهم عن السبيل ويحسبون أنهم مهتدون. So يعشو العشاء الليلي is a medical condition that is used today. I don't think that's what it was meant by when this verse was revealed, but we took from it a medical condition, which is someone who can't see due to certain deficiencies. But really what it means in the Arabic language is someone who can't see at night. They can only see during the day. The reason being, they can only see when it's shiny. They can only see when it's shiny. If it's not shiny, then they can't see it. So it's a very interesting usage of the word in this verse, kind of just talking about Zukhruf a moment ago, which is just something that kind of shines. But what he's saying is, وَمَنْ يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ. Dhikr al-Rahman is the remembrance of the most merciful Lord. And he uses his name Ar-Rahman subhanahu wa ta'ala here quite a bit, because it's a name that doesn't have a materialistic aspect to it. Meaning he could use any name he wanted, Jalla Jalaluhu. And some names are very physical, can have a physical connotation to them, and it can have something that is more materialistic in its approach, like Al-Qudra, for example, or Al-Ilm. But Ar-Rahman is a name that is extremely spiritual, because it speaks of only compassion and empathy. That's the baseline of it. And it's not compassion and empathy that's specific, it's very generic. It's for everything that he created, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. All of my compassion encompasses everything that I created. Yani, ما كتب ربكم على نفسه الرحمة. Allah subhanahu, your Lord has decreed upon himself that he will show mercy. And as the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, وَرَحْمَتِي سَبَقَتْ غَضَبِي, is what is written on the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My mercy, my compassion will beat my anger, or beat my wrath. Jalla Jalalullah. So he uses this name here because it's a name that's very spiritual in nature, that has a very spiritual context to it. وَمَنْ يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ. And those who turn a blind eye, or those who fail to be able to see it, because it's not something that is similar to Zukhruf, so they just can't see it. They don't have the ability to actually see it anymore, because they're accustomed now, their eyesight is accustomed to seeing only things that are like that. That's how they move in life. They go from one shiny thing to the other, from one thing that is very materialistically oriented, or something that is very lucrative in nature, to the next lucrative thing. And that's really how they're making their choices and moving forward in life. It's just wealth based. It's based on making more. The ugly part of this is that there's never enough. There is never enough. there's no amount that the human being, if the human being becomes materialistic, there's no amount that will ever be enough. There's always more. You can always have more. You can always, until you own the whole planet. And even then, you'll start looking maybe at, getting parts of the moon, maybe owning pieces there. Maybe it's just how the human being is programmed. If we allow ourselves to walk down that path, if we allow ourselves to become materialistic, and we do have, and here's the point of this, why this surah is important, what it's trying to tell us, is that we do have, we are susceptible to this. We have the susceptibility of becoming extremely materialistic if we're allowed to. If we don't control it, if we don't revise it, if we're not reassessing the way we're seeing the world, and we're holding ourselves accountable, and we're revisiting our worldview and perspectives, we do definitely have the susceptibility to become extremely materialistic, and it'll just spiral out of control, and it'll be the only thing that matters, and you're never, and you're never satisfied, because there's always a bit more that you could have done. There's always a bit more that you could have owned. But he's using this word here, very interesting usage. He could have said anything. وَمَن يُعْرِضْ would have worked for me. But he said وَمَن يَعْشُ. And he's just referring to a state of someone that their eyesight now is maybe not literally, but figuratively. They just can't see it. They don't have the ability to see dhikr al-Rahman anymore. Sometimes people won't be able to see the dhikr. They won't. Like you'll feel it when you speak to them. They're just not hearing it. They just can't understand it. You're speaking, you're explaining, and it's not registering. Now, sometimes they're just on. That's where they're on in their journey. That's just where they are. You have to give them some time. And sometimes they've made choices prior to this moment that led them to this state. And this is just the consequence of the choices that they made. And there's nothing you can do anymore to save them. You just have to make dua for them and let them continue to move forward and hope that inshallah they find their way at some point. And this is a good example of where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing that out. Someone who's become extremely materialistic will not be able, yashu. They literally can't see it. No matter what you say, they just cannot connect to something that does not follow the simple laws of materialism. They just can't do it. They need that. You have to show them that aspect of it. If you can't, and sometimes a lot of the deen is not following that simple unidimensional law, so there's more to it. They just won't be able to see it. They can't feel it. وَمَن يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ. And the ones who do that, the ones who turn that blind eye and refuse to see it or cannot see it anymore, or are blind to it, they're blind to this fact because it's not similar to what they've oriented themselves to in their lives up till this moment. نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. We will appoint for them a shaitan. And this shaitan will be accompanying them in all of their movements forward. This individual will always be there. Now, the scholars have differed on what is meant by shaitan in here. Just based on the usage of the word in the Quran, shayateen al-insi wal-jinni, as it is repeated in the Quran in multiple places. Shaitan can be a devil who's actually from jinn, which is fine, and that's a traditional understanding that I have no problem with at all. I think it's fine. That there is always one of the jinn, one of the shayateen that is going to be continuously doing waswasa to you, trying to get you to change your mind, showing you, opening. Shaitan doesn't really do much, really. The shaitan of jinn, he's quite simple. Like he doesn't have much of an effect. He just opens a catalog for you. Here, how about this? No? Okay. How about this? No? Okay. How about this one? Just keep on showing you stuff until you're like, yeah, I like that. Okay, good. Here, run with it. And that's as far as it goes. There's nothing really much more than that. Any other suggestion that there is a problem. I'm up in arms when that's brought to me, and I take a very specific and a very clear stand on it. The concept of a shaitan or a jinn, somehow hijacking your consciousness and taking the steering wheel and literally moving. That's not proper. And if you think someone's like that, mutlabbis or something like that, then what you need to do is you need to refer this person to a specialist, not an exorcism specialist, but a mental health specialist, because that's what's going on. And we have a lot of this in this community, and I am saturated with this problem. So I have no empathy anymore I just don't have it anymore. So you show me that issue, I'll be very clear. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. You don't do it, I'll report you. And I will make a big deal of it. There've been problems, there's been instances where I've been forced to be involved in stories that I'm very close to turning it into a press release musibah, or get the police involved, where someone who's young, who has very clear schizophrenic problems. He's not the only person in his family who has this. It's something that runs in the family, and they somehow believe that this person is mutalabbis, maybe 20-year-old. I'll give an example that I hate the most, and a young 20-year-old gentleman who used to live in this society. I'm not sure if he's still here anymore, but he was taken, and they did an exorcism on this person. They brought this old radio, and this radio, basically, if you move the transmitter of it, it'll make a different noise. And he was doing up and down on this person's body, figuring out where the jinn was, and then slapping him with a shib to get the jinn out of him. And this gentleman tried to kill himself, tried to commit suicide. We barely made it. His life was barely saved. So this is not a joking matter at all. Like, I know it sounds funny, but it's not actually funny at all. This is very serious. People can harm themselves. And if they're told that you have something inside of you, try to convince someone who was told that there's a devil living inside of them, that it's not. Try to convince a schizophrenic that's paranoid, a paranoid schizophrenic, who was told at some point that there's a shaitan sitting in your brain controlling you, that's not the case. It's almost impossible. If this idea has been put in, it's impossible to take out. Wallahi, it's a way. I've been on calls for hours. By psychiatrists who will call me and say, can you speak to this person? And I'm on the phone trying to talk to a Muslim person who has a mental health problem, that you don't have jinn inside you. You just have, there's a chemical imbalance. You're just ill. It's like your liver not working, or your lungs not functioning. It's not very different than that. And you just need treatment, and you need to kind of take care of yourself. You have to allow those who know what they're doing to care for you. But they don't. And that's just another problem that we have to kind of face in this society. But I do ask those who listen to me to take this very seriously. And if you're seeing people struggle, make sure you make the right choices. And unfortunately, a lot of these families who struggle with these type of problems have a low socioeconomic background and not very well educated. So actually convincing the family that this person does not have a jinn in them is more difficult than convincing the patient. Meaning it's the family that refuse to take them to a mental health professional to offer them the care that they need. And it's a downward spiral, and it's a vicious cycle. It just keeps on repeating itself, and it's just one problem that leads to another one. But it's our obligation as people in the society, when we see something like this, that we deal with it appropriately, and we take it we escalate it if needed to the point where it's actually going to be dealt with properly, and it can save lives. And if you don't do that, you can end up really damaging a full family, because this is not something that's simple. So نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. Now that putting that aside, the rant is over. It's either a shaitan who is actual jinn, which will perform waswasa. Yes, this shaitan found. The reason that I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word shaitan specifically is because the shayateen, what they're good at is that they figure out what your key is. If they figure out what you like, they figure out exactly, then they know what part of the catalog to go to, because there's a lot of different things that can be put in front of you to distract you from the path that you're trying to walk. If you're trying to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a lot of things that can distract you. So if this person has already shown that they're extremely materialistic, and their vision is unidimensional, they can only see that which is shiny, that which is wealth-based, that is materialistically based, then they know exactly what part of the catalog to open to. And this shaitan, muqayyad, this is appointed to this person, and every time they just show you that person will take immediately, when presented to them that part of the catalog, they'll immediately follow. They have no problem. نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. They're always there. اقترن الشيء بالشيء is when something is always appointed to something else. It's always stuck to it. It never leaves it alone. Or it could be shaitan al-ins, which by far is much worse. By far much worse. Shaitan al-jinn miskin. أنت تقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. He's gone. That's it. It's nothing. It's just a waswasa issue. They're gone. Shaitan al-ins, say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. See if they go away. They don't go away. They'll just sit there, right? And they'll probably even enjoy the fact that you said that you're actually reinforcing that, why they feel, I'm actually making and they'll continue to push you until they make you do that. And that's just how, we are much more dangerous And the Quran says, this is not me. Inna kayda shaytani kana da'ifa. This is the Quran. You don't have to listen to me. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying they have a weak kayd. Their plotting is very weak. But on the other hand, the human plotting, that's a whole different level. Human beings, when they want something, they'll make sure it occurs, and they'll make sure it happens. So it could be the shaitan of the ins. It could be that they were given, because very rarely does someone embark on a journey of materialism and do it alone. Very rarely does someone do this on their own. There's always someone else in the picture there. There's always some other, it's always in, if not in pairs, it's in groups. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَصُدُّونَهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. And this is a terrifying ayah. It's terrifying. And indeed, they are going to repel them back from the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're going to be distracted or repelled or removed from walking the path. وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. And here's the terrifying part. And they feel or think or are under the impression that they're doing well. That this is correct. No, what I'm doing is the right thing. You're the one who, you're insane. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're the one who needs to revise your understanding of the world. You're the one who has taken an illusional, delusional approach to the world. The right. Why do you think masajid are being run like businesses? Should they be run like businesses? Is a masjid a business? It's not. Masajid aren't businesses. They don't function that way. I know it seems that, but that's a very, in my opinion, very unidimensional way to run something. And masajid definitely don't work that way. And if you try and make them work that way, they'll fail, because that's not how they're built. This place here isn't built. The metrics of its success can't be wealth, can't be money. You can't walk into the door and I see a dollar bill when you do it. If that's how I'm seeing it and that's how I'm understanding, then there's something wrong in the way that I'm approaching this. The masajid these are houses of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need a place to live. Jalla Jalalullah. Then it's a house of those who need service, who need help, who need assistance, who are looking for something, who require the jama'ah to have their hearts stable, to find serenity within the group of the Muslims surrounding them, who are looking for those who will bring them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the essence of these places. But if we run them otherwise, or in a different manner, it's bound not to work eventually, even if it works out well at the beginning, which it may at some point, but it's just a matter of time before it fails, because that's not how these places are set up. They're just not. The Prophet ﷺ, look, you think about his masjid during his life. You would think that they would build it up a bit more, right? Like you think that during his life, because since he's there, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is the first masjid, and this is the masjid of Nabawi, and it's a big deal. You would think they would build it up. It didn't have walls, yakhi. It was a masjid that had people living in it all the time, 24/7. People. It was a basically semi-hotel. There were the Ahl al-Sufa there all the time. You came into the masjid, they were there. You came in the morning, you came in the evening, they were sleeping, they were eating, they had children all the time. This is how his masjid functioned. Imagine, would you go to that masjid? If I took you to a masjid where there's always people, and not rich people, the poorest of the poor, the people who are sitting there hoping when you come in, you brought something, that you have something in your hand to feed them, because they haven't eaten for quite some time. They don't have skills, and they don't have backgrounds, and they've been kicked out of their homes, and they barely have clothing. This is the reality of Ahl Sufa. The Prophet ﷺ was very smart and very capable. He was able to move a lot of them out, like to give them a career, to have some people teach them skills and get them moving in their lives. But the masjid kept on filling up. They weren't told, no, this is a masjid, go find somewhere else to live. No, this is a masjid. This is where you're going to be. You understand the difference? I'm not saying that we should do this, by the way, just so you don't understand me. I'm not saying that we make masajid homeless, for the homeless to live in. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, do you see the difference in how they viewed what it was, what this home was? No one came and said, well, this is a masjid, so I'm sorry, you need to leave because this is where we pray. No, they lived there. The Prophet ﷺ made sure that he was living right beside them. He lived with them every day. He was a part of their lives. They were very. Well, how do you think Abu Hurairah narrated a couple of thousand hadith? Because he was Ahl Sufa for the longest time, and he saw the Prophet ﷺ every day. So he memorized everything. He just had nothing else to do. He didn't have a job at the time. It took him a while to find a job. He was already poor, so it didn't matter. So he just went wherever the Prophet ﷺ went. And he memorized, and of course, alhamdulillah, we have a lot to thank him for, because we have a lot to know. We know a lot about him, alayhi salatu wasalam, because he did that. But this is how the masajid were run. That's the masjid of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. It was very simple. And they never, even after, because, okay, you can say, well, at the beginning, it was simple because they were very poor. The second year of, the first year of Hijrah, they didn't have anything. But what about after Fatih Makkah? He lived for quite a bit, for a year. They would have built it up. They have the wealth now. They didn't. They did not. Because it's not about spaces that look good. Even though it's ihsan and everything is required, but it wasn't about that. There was much more to what a masjid. A masjid was based on the services it was offered. It was based on the people. It was based on the investment in human beings and the love that was being generated there, and the ilm and the knowledge. It wasn't based on how big it was and how. That's not what makes a masjid a great place. And that's something we have to kind of understand. It's a terrifying verse. I'm always scared of it. Because what if it's referring to me? What if I'm being rejected and repelled from this path and I think I'm doing well? So many people Yawm al-Qiyamah. We just heard it last night in Surah Al-Kahf. وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا. And they think they're doing really well. But they're not. They're on the opposite side of the rails. How do we know? How you know is by making sure that your perspective, the way that you're viewing everything is healthy, is holistic. It's not unidimensional. It's not just one metric that you're using to judge whether something is successful or not, and you're actually using the proper ways. You're seeing things for what they are. You're seeing the reality, and you're not fooled by the Zukhruf. You're not fooled by that which is shiny. I continue, inshallah. حتى إذا جاءنا قال يا ليت بيني وبينك بعد المشرقين فبئس القرين ولن ينفعكم اليوم إذ ظلمتم أنكم في العذاب مشتركون أفأنت تسمع الصم أو تهدي العمي ومن كان في ضلال مبين فإما نذهبن بك فإنا منهم منتقمون أو نرينك الذي وعدناهم فإنا عليهم مقتدرون فاستمسك بالذي أوحي إليك إنك على صراط مستقيم وإنه لذكر لك ولقومك وسوف تسألون واسأل من أرسلنا من قبلك من رسلنا أجعلنا من دون الرحمن آلهة يعبدون. So the rest of it will kind of go through, inshallah. It doesn't take as much time. حتى إذا جاء, and until this person comes to us يوم القيامة. And all reality is clear. And now this asha, this veil that was in front of their eyes, this lack of ability to see things for what they are, is no longer there anymore. It's been removed. The Yawm al-Qiyamah will definitely remove that for us. And it's a reality check that will set things straight for all human beings. We don't have any more psychological or socio-psychological complexes by the time Yawm al-Qiyamah is halfway through. We have been straightened out completely. We know exactly what is worth and what is not worth, what is valuable, what is not valuable. The judgment level that we have is perfect, it's pristine, it's right on the bat. There's no mistakes at all in it, because we've been shown what really matters in the world and what doesn't. So when he comes, this person, he turns to his qareen, whether it's jinn or whether it's ins, it's not important if you understood the concept that I tried to explain. You'll say to this person, يَا لَيْتَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ بُعْدَ الْمَشْرِقَيْنِ I wish that the distance between you and I during life was the distance between the sharq and the gharb. And he uses the word mashriqayn because that's how Arabs would say. Any two things that come together a lot, the Arab will use one of them and just give it a dual nature. So mashriqayn, mashriq wa maghrib. For example, al-aswadan, al-tamr wal-ma'. Even though ma is not black, but it'll say aswadan because they're associated with each other. And this association in the Arabic language happens a lot. So I just wished we lived very far away from one another and that there was no association with you whatsoever. فَبِئْسَ الْقَرِينَ You were the worst person for me to be associated with. But he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَنْ يَنْفَعَكُمُ الْيَوْمَ إِذْ ظَلَمْتُمْ You will not find benefit today. As you were both oppressive, you both made the same mistake. أَنَّكُمْ فِي الْعَذَابِ مُشْتَرِكُونَ You won't find benefit that you're both being punished, meaning the punishment of one will not lessen the punishment of the other. Everyone will be held accountable for what they've done, so it won't make a difference. Unfortunately, you've made the mistake, you oppressed and you went away from the way, you were distracted from the sabil of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you walked that path. It won't benefit you. That today you're disassociating yourself with them. Coming and saying, I wish I never, it doesn't matter. What you wish today doesn't matter. It's too late. That should have been in a decision that was made a long time ago. So it won't make a difference for you. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, speaking to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, أَفَأَنْتَ تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ, but you're going to force those who are deaf to hear. أَوْ تَهْدِي الْعُمِي, are you going to offer those who can't see eyesight? You can't. You can't change people's nature, whether it's how they are or how they've chosen to be. You can't make it, you can't change that. That's not your job. And the Prophet ﷺ, the reason he's being told this is because he went out of his way to find methods to try to get people to understand what he's explaining, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if people weren't, he would think for hours. He would stay up trying to figure out what is the key, how do I change? And he's being told by Allah, look, those who've made a choice not to see something, not to hear something, that they're not interested, you cannot force it upon them. You can't change what they've already decided to do. أَفَأَنْتَ تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ وَتَهْدِي الْعُمْيَ وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ, and the ones who are in a very clear state of loss. It's a conundrum because loss is never clear, but no, their level of loss is almost clear. So anyone seeing them can say this person, even non-religious people, even someone who is materialistic like them, but this is too much. This person has lost their focus. And then he's told sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these verses in the Quran are a couple of places, and they're difficult. فَإِمَّا نَذْهَبَنَّ بِكَ, so you may die. You may not see this materialize. You may not see this da'wah turn into what we hope or you hope for it to turn into. It may not. فَإِمَّا نَذْهَبَنَّ بِكَ, meaning we'll take your life before you see any success. This is a Makki surah, not a Madani one. So you say, well, Madani, he's already done a lot, so we should be okay. We can. No. This is before the hijrah, which basically, that's why the hijrah is how we have our calendar, because before hijrah there was almost no hope, but after hijrah things started to perk up a bit. But this is before hijrah. He's being told, we may take your life. فَإِنَّا مِنْهُمْ مُنْتَقِمُونَ, and then we will avenge your life, and we will punish those who refused. أَوْ نُرِيَنَّكَ الَّذِي وَعَدْنَاهُمْ فَإِنَّا عَلَيْهِمْ مُقْتَدِرُونَ, or you'll actually be successful and we'll show you what we promised you upon them, and we are more than capable of punishing these people. He's being told, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you may die. You may not. There were no guarantees for him, alayhi salatu wasallam, that he was going to live long enough to see this actually work. He didn't have those guarantees. He wasn't. You and I know how the story went. He, during Mecca, didn't know what the story was going to, how the story was going to turn out. He wasn't promised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no, you're going to be fine. You're going to live until you see this actually come to fruition. No, you're not. You're not, because that would be a materialistic outlook, wouldn't it? That it's going to succeed, it's going to work. So I just have to, no, because this may not work. You may do this all of your life and you may not see the fruits of it. And it may not succeed, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. It doesn't mean that it's not worth your time and your effort and your energy and your commitment and your sa'i for all of your life. Again, a failed metric. No, it has to work. No, it may not work. You may run a masjid, you may run a halaqah, and you teach, and maybe, but are you doing it right? Is it being done properly? Are you doing it correctly? Is there messaging the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants? Then that's, you do it. You do it. You can't force those who don't want to hear, those who can't see. This is not used to say that we don't have a metric of measurement at all. No, we have to. You have to have a way to measure whether something is succeeding or working or not. But it can't be just based on one thing. It can't be for the Prophet ﷺ that you outlive them, or that you are triumphant upon them. No. Are we going to say that Nuh ﷺ wasn't a successful prophet? Because if we're going to say it this way, then we're going to say Nuh alayhi salam and Yahya alayhi salam and Zakaria alayhi salam, and even there's a lot of prophets who we can come. He talks about sallallahu alayhi wasallam about the prophet that comes Yawm al-Qiyamah with no one, literally walking alone, just himself, not one person, not a spouse, no children, nothing. This person comes alone Yawm al-Qiyamah. What I'm going to look at that prophet and say that prophet wasn't successful? No, a'udhu billah. That's not how we measure whether this is successful or not. Yes, it didn't work out. The outcome of da'wah wasn't there, but it doesn't mean this prophet was not successful at all. So the Prophet ﷺ being told, look, this may not work out. You may do this and it doesn't work out, but that's okay. Are you doing? That's why, what's the ayah right after it? Yeah. فَاسْتَمْسِكْ بِالَّذِي أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ. Your job is hold on tight. Hold on with a grasp of steel upon, and this is not ta'assub, this is not being closed-minded. Ta'assub is always wrong. There's never a usage of that word that's good. But the alternative word that we use in Islam that is good, istimsak, is holding on tight. فَاسْتَمْسِكْ بِالَّذِي أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ, to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to you. Hold on tight. That's your job. That's what's required of you. إِنَّكَ عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. You're walking upon the straight path. If you can say that in your life, that I'm holding on tight to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught, and I'm walking the straight path, I have integrity in all of my decisions, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether that metric of wealth and fame work or not. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter anymore. Because you're doing the right thing. You're doing it properly. You're doing it the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded, then you're good to go. Keep on going. Keep on going whether you see the fruits of your efforts or not. And the Prophet ﷺ is being told, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I've always found this extremely interesting, that he was told, you may not see it. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew he was going to live that long, but he didn't. And that's important for us to understand that alayhi salatu wasalam was not given guarantees that this is going to work. Just keep on doing it. And that, to me, would be less impressive. Because if you know it's going to work out eventually, then you'll just stick to it. But if you're told you may die, they may actually be able to assassinate you and you lose your life. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he was still okay with it, and he still held on tight. Fastamsik. I love the verse, Fastamsik. This is something you can write on a piece of, and then put on your wall. Fastamsik billadhi uhiya ilayk. Innaka ala siratim mustaqim. Wa innahu ladhikrun laka wa liqawmin. And this is a reminder for you and for your qawm. Some scholars have seen this as the word reminder as understood differently, as in this is a sharaf for you and your qawm, meaning the fact that you were given the Quran is in Arabic, this is going to be until the day of judgment, something that will elevate your status and elevate the status of your people, and that's a fine understanding as well. But I think the first one is much more appropriate for what the verse is explaining. This is a reminder for you, and a reminder for your people. وَسَوْفَ تُسْأَلُونَ. And you're going to be asked. You're going to be asked. About what though? About what? About whether you became very famous and a lot of people followed, or are you going to be asked whether you did istimsak and you walked the sirat mustaqim? Which one is the question going to come for? And that's where we part ways with those who have a very unidimensional, materialistic approach to things. That's where we part ways. For them, it's the metric of whether a lot of people followed, a lot of people accepted, you became very famous, there was a lot of wealth involved, versus whether you just held on, you never gave up, you never sold out, you never changed your ethics, you never changed your values. وَسَوْفَ تُسْأَلُونَ. And that's what you're going to be asked about Yawm al-Qiyamah. So just prepare for the question. Prepare for the question isn't about, it's not materialistic question, it's a different question, it's a much more broad question. Obviously we want as many people, obviously in the Quran, the victory, وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. Obviously that's what victory is. The final verse, وَاسْأَلْ مَنْ أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ مِنْ رُسُلِنَا. And ask all the prophets who came before you, all the messengers. أَجْعَلْنَا مِنْ دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ آلِهَةً يُعْبَدُونَ. Was there anything worth worshipping besides Ar-Rahman himself subhanahu wa ta'ala? Was anything worth your time? Was anything worth your efforts and your dedication, your commitment? And the answer is no. Nothing is worth it. Nothing. Everything else is just an illusion. Everything else is just a lie. And we'll end with that, inshallah. And we'll start the story of Musa alayhi salam tomorrow morning. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت استغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.